School District Board of Directors meeting for February 15th. It is 6 o'clock. We're at the central office. Thank you everyone for being comfortable with switching. We'll go through the agenda. We have Jack, just so you know, we have Jack on Zoom, so when we do a vote, we'll have to do a roll call vote because we have a mixed group, so we'll have to make sure we do that. Want to make sure we have a quorum, which we do. Agenda review is the next item. Need to add an item 8D, staff leave request. We'll deal with that when we get to that. The next item is Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, which is there. I'm going to apologize in advance that I'm not going to stand because I can't.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. All right, let's go to the visitor section. Any visitors here that are really visitors? You're all here for a purpose. So anybody online that's here for a visitor?
So just posted it, nobody's responded yet. But it does seem to be entirely staff members in there.
All staff members? Okay, so we'll skip over the visitor section and we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. And we have the approval of minutes for 30th, February 1st, 9 and 8 and 9, and then the media packet. Does anybody need to pull any of these items out for discussions? Hearing none, we'll accept the consent agenda as is. Next item on the agenda is reports to the board. So the first group is the student board representatives, and we have Sarah McConnell and Leah Fitzgerald who are going to update us on school stuff.
Hi. Yeah, so we have some news today. So right now we're working on enrichment activities for BFA. Today was our first official day with the grant that we had. And so we had activities going on the complex, we had like an art studio open, and we wanted to start off slow, so that went well, and I think we had a good amount of kids to start, which was really good. And then our specific committee that works for the board, we're working on a project to kind of collaborate with other schools. So we have a meeting or workshop thing with some students from Harwood, which we're very excited about. And it's up for learning, which we're really excited about. So that's happening with our group, all 6 of us, and yeah, we're really excited.
Mm-hmm. And some other things that we're doing through the high school that are coming up. We have a school dance on Friday, which we're excited to be hosting for Valentine's Day, or just in general, which is exciting. Pink the Rink is coming up this Saturday, which is really important to support causes for cancer. So that's going to be hosted at the complex, 5:30 for the girls and 7:30 for the boys. So which is always great for support, and BFA is really excited about that. Other things, kind of school sports are kind of wrapping up. One thing that I'm excited about personally is we're continuing our volleyball program through SATEC, Saks, Fairfield, and Georgia. So I went to one of the meetings today, and there's a ton of girls and boys from the BFA Comets and Bob White's that are going to be, coaching and stuff to all the kids. So that's something exciting, I think, with the community, and we've been really great about that. Hopefully continue that going. I think that's about it.
I actually had something else. The Interact Club for BFA is doing like tours tomorrow night for upcoming freshmen and new students. So we have some students acting as ambassadors there, and then they're also doing like some other communal activities during enrichment for students as well. Like they're showing a film, a skiing film. So
Yes.
yeah, should be good.
Thank you. Anyone have questions for Leah and Sarah?
I've got a question. If you could just look into, at one point, there was a social justice club, and they presented and requested the BLM flag, which they received. And I'm just wondering, last week, 2 weeks ago, we had a presenter with the Abenaki group, and I know there's other issues coming up. Was BLM the end game, or are they looking at other issues as well?
I'm in the group, so when you mean other issues, what?
Well, like Gay Pride Month, or like I said, the Abenaki group. Are there other things that are coming up besides?
Not particularly. Actually, I think putting up the pride flag for June did come up, but we had to kind of think about that and the impacts of that, which we had to consider a lot when putting up the Black Lives Matter flag, and it did take a long sort of time to work through that because we don't want to put anybody like in harm. So we do have to go through those kind of steps, which no, we have not thought about. I know it's been mentioned.
Yeah, would you do that? Because I would just feel better if this was an active
Yeah, like an active
issue,
group.
yeah.
Yeah.
Rather than something like, okay, we got the BLM, we're done.
Yeah, no, I completely get that.
Thank you very much.
Any other groups come forward requesting to put their flag up?
No, there's not been any other groups. So that's another thing kind of with the groups and clubs that we have actually talked about in our meetings is a lot of them it's really hard to create change, I think, as we all know. So a lot of the clubs that we have at BFA, personally, I feel like they're not very like change oriented. We do clubs and we do dances and we do prom, and so Social Justice Club, I feel like, is one of the clubs that I know that does like bigger things, I guess, and we don't have a lot of people, so it's hard on that, but I think it's been mentioned. It's definitely been mentioned, and so no, there's no other student groups, and I don't think there's a lot of like knowledge around how would they accomplish that, and that's one, again, tying back into our group, I think that's something that we want to discuss. Like, we want to create a way to have students, like, if you want to change something, this is the funnel, like, how to do it, and I'm very, like, privileged to know that I'm here and I can do that, but a lot of students don't know that this is an opportunity, so, getting the word out there that they can create change.
Isn't that's one of the reasons you wanted Up for Learning, to help
Yes.
you? How do you get that information
To get
to the students?
inclusion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so hopefully next Wednesday, when we have the meeting with Up for Learning, and we're doing these workshops, that we can start really thinking about, well, how do we get that out there? How do we say that this is a group through students and students for students, and, make that connection and the bridge to, this important work. So hopefully we'll get some.
Was the Social Justice Club the one that brought the BLM flag up?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so, have you guys as a club thought of maybe presenting other flags, like maybe not waiting for, student X to come up to you, but maybe saying, okay, what else, what else is important to the people in the club? Like, what else can we talk about? Like, what other flags can we talk? Like, is that just something that's happened, or no, not yet, or?
No, we haven't talked about other flags yet, and I want to like go back to the saying it was hard with the Black Lives Matter flag, and I think to put up other larger flags like the Pride flag there's always that consideration, which is I think it's a great idea, but what's like the setbacks? I mean, how can that be harmful? Which kind of sucks. It does suck, like to think about what are the repercussions of that.
Right.
And that's something we do have to consider with, everything that people do. But I think it has been mentioned. Yes, it has been mentioned. I don't think there's others, but the only thing I have heard is the Pride flag. I'm not really I don't know a lot about flags.
Yeah.
All the different flags that there are. I would be so interested, that I could bring that up.
And we will have some discussion related to this in our new business.
Thank you, Leah. And Sarah.
I have a question. When you're talking about repercussions, you mean like student backlash against other students? Okay.
Yeah. There was a lot of, like when we got it raised last year, you know, comments and what actually happened was there was a new petition, I guess, to raise like just like a different flag in retaliation. But again, that's something, if students want to raise it, I mean, they have the right to do that and to bring it to the board and present it, so, but that's another thing that yes, I did mean like, in backlash for the students.
Did you guys learn kind of about that backlash through the BLM raising? Like that was kind of like a, let's try this, and you were kind of like, oh, now we have to be more careful?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of students that just kind of didn't have the reaction we expected.
Okay.
And
But that's okay, and it's we were like, okay, this fosters like conversation, so we sent out more like emails, and this is why we do it, and this is what the message is, and this is why we wanted to do it, and really reiterating that it was a student-led.
So when you say other people brought it to you, if that's kind of our point, is it's gotta be student-led, can I ask why it kind of got caught dead in the water? Like, if they said this is what we want, when we had kind of talked about switching out flags, it was kind of like, well, if a student wants it, then they bring it to us. So can I ask why it was kind of dead in the water?
Which flag?
You just said there was one in
For
So-
another one?
We're having like a conversation here, and probably this isn't the place to have this. We do have opportunity to talk about it later, and you have opportunity to connect with some of these people, maybe offline, get more info. I mean, it's just like, do you guys want to continue the conversation? I mean, I think I'm doing the right thing here by sort of cribbing it. Am I illegal?
It's up to you.
We can, if we're talking about the ability to have like the flagpole, I know that we're mentioning that, I can definitely mention.
Right.
But if you don't want me to wrap it up really quickly.
No, please, go ahead. Don't wrap it up quickly.
Okay.
Take your time.
The reason that it stopped is because it was like a week thing. Like 1 week it was like, oh, I'm gonna, we had some students coming and emailing us, and we said, yes, if you want to do that, you can bring it to the board, and I don't think they wanted to do that.
Gotcha.
So that is why.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Katie.
Yeah, of course.
All right. Next item is reports. On the reports to the board is the Lighthouse. We have Alexis White and Matt Bloom.
You really are mad.
We really have Matt. Okay. Take it away.
Give me 1 second.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Matt Bloom. I'm the program manager for the Lighthouse, which is BFA's new alternative high school opportunity for students of Maple Run Unified School District, grades 9 through 12. Next slide. Thanks. What are we? The Lighthouse. We're a general education program, which means that we're serving students through special education who are covered by 504 or EST plans. Okay, so we are able to capture all students that might need this sort of support. A lot of other alternative high school programs in the state are mostly strictly for students receiving special education services. We are emphasizing community building. This school came about to serve students who become disengaged. We really noticed after the pandemic. So it's about giving students a chance to come, feel comfortable and safe, and regain and rebuild their relationship with their educational process. We support students with redefining their education. We have an enhanced focus on social emotional learning, and I'll go into when that happens. We foster executive functioning skills every minute of every day. And we support students whose attendance has historically been problematic in their high school and some in their elementary school and middle school careers. Thanks. And I just spattered the slideshow with just some pictures of us in action. And I've got permission from everyone to do that. On the left is our full value contract. We developed that at the beginning of the school year, and that was 100% student generated and led and supported by the adults. If you want to take a minute just to look at that. We are supporting students who have historically struggled with attendance. Some had struggles prior to COVID, and then COVID really threw a wrench in it, and we weren't seeing students return as we were hoped and expected. Many more, there are students who may be more successful in a smaller environment. We're also transitioning students back to the BFA community that have been placed in more restrictive placements in schools that have either been outside of BFA or outside of the district. Thanks. That's Tom Plog, and that's social studies class. And yeah. Take a minute, take a look at this. This is who we are. It's myself, the program manager. We've got a behavior interventionist, Andrew Cook. We've got a dual certified or work on dual certification social studies and English teacher, Tom Plog, and we've got a dual certified math and science teacher, Aaron Kusan. We've all got pretty different styles. Kate, are you laughing at my picture?
No,
yes.
not at all. I can't even see you.
And we complement each other really well. Tom is really rigorous and has super high expectations for the students who at first were like, what's going on here? And then they all love him and all are really working hard to please him, but at the same time, they're getting quite a bit out of it. And Erin is, she's just really calm, and she's very open, and she's understanding, and she, the lessons she's doing in math and science are super applicable to the students. It's a lot of hands-on activities, and when I mean hands, it's like they've been working for the last 2 or 3 weeks on personal finance in math, and she's got checks, she's got the Community Bank of Kusan, and it's applicable stuff. We've placed a student working. This year we got him a job at the high school, and he's taking stuff that he's learning around setting up a bank account. What about tax? It's tax season. What does it all mean? And so they're learning what they're going to end up needing to use, which I think is really important, and in a really small, supportive environment.
The only piece that I would add, so for those who don't know me, my name is Alexis White. I'm the Student Support Director for Maple Run School District. So this is just the faculty that live and have their base out of the actual lighthouse. So what this slide does not represent is students obviously continue to have their school counselors at BFA. The social workers are still involved with students at the lighthouse. Our 504 coordinator continues to oversee and manage 504 plans for students at the lighthouse, as well as special education case managers are still very active team members. So I just want to reflect that there's actually a much larger team when we talk about the partnering that happens between the lighthouse and the BFA main campus. These are just the folks that live and breathe that program day in and day out.
Thank you. A day in the life at the lighthouse. Here's our daily schedule. We run the same schedule every day for consistency, as opposed to what they're doing at BFA with the Tuesday, Wednesday, goes from the block schedule to that really long enrichment period like Leah was talking about, the need for those enrichment activities. We start off every day with a check-in in our social emotional learning group, or lessons. Right now we're talking about the importance of self-care and really helping kids identify how they're doing during the winter. During that time in the morning between 8:10 and 8:55, we're also, we started a class in collaboration with Leah Mahabir, our Flexible Pathways Coordinator, called Career Connections. He comes over once a week, and it's about job placement, how we enter the job world, and we use a platform that the school subscribes to called Virtual Job Shadow, which is just this amazing platform with resources. Like, it just keeps coming out of the woodwork, and they can type in their zip code and see every job that's available to them right now. A lot of kids want the jobs, but really struggle about what's my first step, how do we do that? So we're really digging into that. We've got our curriculums laid out for the rest of the year, talking about, we'll do resume building, we'll do mock interviews, and we'll take them out in the community and help them pound the pavement. And then once a week, as Alexis pointed out, we are working with Ashley Salatka and Corey Enos, our two social workers out of the BFA guidance office, and they come over once a week and run a group in the morning, and that's on Tuesdays. And they, in addition to coming over once a week, they also come over and meet their caseload at the Lighthouse. We go right into 2 core periods from 9 to 10:35. We have a little bit of a break. We have our own enrichment, which is kind of a chance for kids to catch their breath and make up any work that they may owed. If they were absent the next day, we always use that enrichment time to capture so they don't get behind. And at first when we started doing that, it was a little rough, but they really see the benefit of it, and just the engagement and their willingness to put that extra work in is really noticed, and I've seen it grow since the beginning of the year, which is nice. Then we have another class period, and then we have lunch. Then we have our last class period of the day. At 1:20, it's our checkout. We head out to either our community connection. Students are receiving credit. We're doing volunteer work at Martha's Kitchen. A lot of baking of no-bake cookies and desserts for them, but the students love it. Deacon Bob, who's running that down there, has been great in collaborating with us, and really the students see the benefit of it, I see the benefit of it, and it's just always around, like, stop looking at yourself and start looking at how we can give back, and they're really taking advantage of that. We're also doing PE in the afternoon. Sean Carney, or Sean LaFave, is helping us with that. And we're going over to the fitness room, and kids are lifting weights and doing cardio. And first, it was like trying to get blood from a stone, but they are all really into it and following their own programs. And then there's an elective time. Some students are working on their electives. So you'll see in following slides that we've got some hybrid students who are actually taking classes both at the Lighthouse and taking some elective classes at BFA in the afternoons.
And the red
And all the
stars.
reds. It's like my mom. All the red stars indicate times of the day that are credit bearing. We've got a lot of students who don't meet their school year to their chronological age year. So it's really around how we get them caught up so they can graduate within reasonable time. And we meet with Elaine Archambault, the director of guidance, pretty regularly to figure out what that path to graduation looks like. So they're invested. And for the first time, like, really taking a look at, like, oh, really, this is what all this means and what the goal is. Thanks. Here's a picture. That's one of our students who came up with the design for the Lighthouse. And Alexis is wearing,
Savannah.
Savannah is wearing sweatshirts. We gave this to the kids for Christmas. So this is our picture of what our enrollment and grade breakdown look like. It's pretty self-explanatory. Of the 4 IEP students, one is doing hybrid work. Same with the 504 and the EST. We've got one student enrolled at Northwest Tech Center in the Human Services program. And we've just figured out the schedule and we make it work. We have the ability to be pretty flexible. So it's really about meeting students where they're at, making sure their needs are being met. We're at a total of 15 students. The program was originally written for 20. We want to start a little bit smaller. We've taken on a few students since the beginning of the year, and due to the confines of the building, we're really space-wise maxed out. You all know where it is? If you don't, it's right across the street from BFA next to Hometown, and we're right there on the corner. Which is great because proximity to the school, we're able to access what we need to over there, and folks that are working with students in the Lighthouse are able to come over, and it's pretty easy. It's not as nice in the winter though. Currently we've got 3 freshmen, 8 sophomores, 2 juniors, and 2 seniors.
Can I just ask a quick question? So like, if they're starting out as a freshman, are you hoping that they stay on? I know you were saying.
That would be the goal, to be able to graduate in 4 years. Yeah. And we currently have about 10 students on the wait list. I think it might have bumped up since I put this together. 1 or 2 might have been added through MTSS, which is our multi-tier system of support group that meets once a week, and students are referred by faculty based on their needs, whether it be academic, social, emotional, behavioral, guidance, FES, family engagement specialist, for attendance issues.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, just to kind of clarify what Katie said, so the hope is that all these students are going to graduate, that's the goal. Certainly they could go back to BFA if that was something that they wanted to do, so they could
absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
So I've got students who, it is unlikely that they will set foot in that building again.
Yeah.
There's 960 plus students, about 125 faculty. It's a lot of people, and the energy and their ability to manage large spaces it's evident, and they really see the benefit of being in a small group. We do have some students who, it's part of the conversation, when we're talking about classes for next year, what might you want to try? Yeah. We're definitely not kicking anybody out, but if students are interested in doing that, then of course it's part of the conversation. Yeah.
It's not a one-size-fits-all, so it's not an all or nothing that once you're in the Lighthouse, you're in the Lighthouse till you graduate. Matt has he meets very frequently with individualized teams, and they're constantly reassessing and looking at data to determine the needs of that specific student. And obviously he has constant contact with families and parents.
Yep, I speak to families every day. It's that relationship piece, like body of my work, I really feel is based on relationships. And, students not there on time, I'm texting them or calling them, like, everything okay, what do you need? And they reach out to me now, which, proactively for their students, which I don't think, just wasn't the way folks did things all the time, and now they're seeing there's a different way.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Where are you going from that slide? So I think you mentioned the program was designed for 20, right? And I think that's what we heard, when we last heard about it. You have 15, but you have 10 on the waiting list.
Yeah.
How does that add up? It seems like you should have 20 and 5 on the waiting list.
So I want to clarify something, I
Yep.
don't want to cut you off. So the 20 proposal was before the construction was done to the space.
Okay.
So the 20 was proposed when the space was just wide open. There's been a lot of construction done to the physical layout. We had to build 2 classrooms, there's 2 bathrooms. There's a back area that has, the fridge and a microwave, and then there's a common area. So I think what we realized is once facilities and construction actually got in there and made it look like a school and a place that could be an educational setting, we quickly found that there's no way physically we could have 20 students in here plus 4 adults. And then that doesn't include the adults that come in and out from the BFA main campus. I will, from my own perspective, and I think Matt would agree, it feels awful to know that there are students that would really benefit from that level of support, and we just don't have the capacity right now to support it without breaking the entire program. So we're also only in month 6, and we really need to start slow. We've learned that there's a lot of tweaks that we had to make and a lot of things we didn't consider that we didn't learn until we actually got in there and started educating students. So in a perfect world, if you asked me what I needed, we need a different space. We need something bigger where we can, and we need more staff, where we can start to take on and support more students, but we can't bust at the seams in month 6.
Yeah. So is there a proposal in progress, or you guys need the sort of time to understand how this is currently working before making that sort of improvement?
So from the very beginning, we said we need at least 2 years to really kind of be where we are and get in the flow and get in a routine. And then I think our hope is that we're coming back to the table and seeing what do we need for month or year 3 and beyond, 4, 5,
And
6.
we also signed a 3-year lease on the space.
Okay.
Sorry, Nat.
No worries.
Stop being your
Thought I'd share with you guys some impact statements that have come my way since the beginning of school. The first one is from a prospective Lighthouse student. While holding an intake meeting with the student family, the student teared up and said, "I thought I was done with school and I can't believe I have this opportunity." That made me cry. It was really emotional, and just the fact that students know what they need it hasn't been an option in the past, and now that it is, and they're willing and wanting to take advantage of that, just I think speaks volumes to the work that we're doing. Another one, local pediatrician reached out to advocate for a placement at the Lighthouse for one of her patients and stated, "I've heard about the good work you are doing by giving students an alternative opportunity." That was from Dr. Strauss, one of the local pediatricians. And the last statement that I'm going to share with you is a student was chatting with Lisa DeRocha and I. This is from Susan Boslin, the social worker at NCTC. One day before break, I asked how this year was going for him, and his face lit up. He said that the Lighthouse program literally saved my life. He feels like he has a home there, a safe place, and a place where he has support and direction. Okay, I did pay that student to say that, but I'm glad that it got back to me. Thanks. And then I thought it would be important, so we were going to try to have a student come and be able to share, give you real life tangible recall of what's going on there, and that just wasn't able to matriculate how we had hoped. So if I come back, hopefully I'll be able to bring someone with me, so I do apologize for that. First statement that we'll listen to is from Andrew Cook, who's our BI. I think you have to hit it, then you have to hit the play, yeah.
The Lighthouse provides a safe and inclusive learning environment for students who find difficulty accessing the learning space at the main BFA campus. At roughly 8 students per class, the teachers are able to provide direct instruction as well as meaningful and thought-provoking conversations at both individual and group levels. The Lighthouse affords its students access to independent learning and ample time to complete assignments. The small number of staff at the Lighthouse is equally important in promoting student comfortability and success. The modeling of positive peer relationships and boundaries is on display. Students have constant access to meet their needs to the program director, a behavior interventionist, and their classroom teachers when available. Students are able to access social emotional learning as well as gain general life skills throughout the day. Additionally, the Lighthouse schedule provides Fridays as team building and extracurricular days. The students are able to explore and find healthy activities, build and grow positive relationships with their peers, and give back to the community of St. Albans by volunteering. The Lighthouse continues to foster community connections to provide students job experience and real-world skills. The Lighthouse is an invaluable resource to the Maple Run Unified School District and the St. Albans community. Students who may identify as being overwhelmed, discouraged, and disconnected at the main campus are provided additional learning opportunities for growth, support, and the necessary skills to graduate, all at a pace that they feel comfortable with.
Andrew's a writer, so if you couldn't tell, Andrew's a writer.
And the next one is from Erin Kusan, our math and science teacher.
I'm Erin Kusan. I'm the math and science teacher at the Lighthouse. In my opinion, the Lighthouse offers a unique learning environment for students who would otherwise have given up on school. The students we are serving are the very ones who pull back and go unnoticed in the typical high school environment. Here, they're the focus right off, and because we're small, our ability to provide academic, emotional, and social attention is vastly increased for them. Although there is variation in their background knowledge, motivation, and academic support, all students are engaged in learning to the capacity that they are able to. They have the time and space to connect with each other, giving them a sense of belonging. Many of them are lacking in some way in their lives. And ultimately, the Lighthouse is a great name for us because we really are like a safety net for them before the rocks.
And the last one is from Tom. I'm just going to give you guys a heads up. He's a former, in a previous life, he was an attorney. So just bear with him, but his heart and message are right on.
Hola, amigos. This is Tom Plog. I teach social studies and English in the Lighthouse program. I think that our unique program is really helping students who struggled in mainstream classrooms to get reconnected with their education. It's not just about students showing up from my perspective. It's really about students taking steps forward, moving closer to graduation, and moving closer to becoming productive members of society. So we've done some of the hard lifting in getting them there this first semester, done some of the hard lifting getting them reconnected with what it's like to be in a classroom and to engage in sustained learning. And now it's time to up the stakes a little and push them a little harder, because through the unique program and the safe learning environment that we've all worked hard to create, students are now taking pride in their work. They're wanting to grow. Some are asking for greater and more challenging learning opportunities, and they're all showing that they're capable of growth. One example of that would be that I'm showing grade level leaps. In fact, I have one student who's left 3 whole grade levels in my English class as based on IXL measurements, and that's just one little nugget. I'm seeing students creating poetry, writing about history, analyzing short stories, being resourceful researchers and writers. Everything that I'm seeing as an 8-year teacher says that this program is really, really helping students who have struggled to move forward with their lives and to reacquire an appreciation of what it means to be a learner and a student and a member of a community. I don't think that could happen without the social and emotional learning piece that we bring to the table here at the Lighthouse, and the very safe and very familial community-like environment that we provide.
Okay, thanks. That's Aaron, and they were doing a probability unit, 2 kids working together. So here's some data for us. Take a look at it. I'm not going to go through it. It would be pointless to go through it student by student, but look at the percentages. Students, that's the change from this year to just last year. You know, we have some, you know, students who just were not showing up at a good clip. And they're all showing up far more than they ever have. And then we've got some students that we brought in over the summer who are new to our district.
Can you explain that a little bit more, please? I'm just confused.
What's,
It's not MRUSD students.
so in the year 21-22, they were in a different school
Gotcha,
district.
middle schooler, okay.
No, in a different school district
Gotcha.
altogether.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Here's just the rest of the students. We've had 2 students withdraw from the Lighthouse. One student ended up going to Val, just wasn't a good fit. Got a lot of stuff going on, and you know, 8-10 to end of the day schedule just was not going to work out for that child. And another student just wasn't can't win them all. But that student's receiving services now as needed. So, so far this year, 18 students we've been in contact with 18 students and families around their attendance. We've brought 2 students back from alternative learning placements outside the district, which does have a bit of a cost savings. We've lost 2 students that I just mentioned due to unenrollment. We've had 1 student already transition back to BFA. And we currently have 3 hybrid students. And when I mean hybrid, I mean accessing both the Lighthouse and classes and activities at the BFA main campus.
Matt, real quick.
Yeah.
If, let's say a student drops, either says, I don't want to be in this program anymore, or you transition wherever they go, or we're moving, let's say. How long is it before you can get another student in there? Like, is it a pretty quick turnaround?
It's within a week.
Wow.
But that's a quick turnaround, because bringing new students in, we've got 2 small groups.
Right.
Got to make sure that the groupings are good, whatever group we're going to put the student into, and also we need a little chance, we need some time to learn and research about their learning and get the big picture.
And that goes by need, not by like, oh, you've been on the wait list longer.
Nope, I triage the
Okay,
list.
thank you.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Oh, you're supposed to call on you?
Well, I didn't know if
Okay.
no one wanted to. So my question is, how many additional students that are BFA students are still in alternative school placements outside of?
I don't have that information, that's not my purview. We have a case manager in the district, 2 managers all out of district placements. I don't know.
We can get that information, but Matt doesn't oversee that data.
No. That's a different conversation, if you really think about it. This is us at Martha's Kitchen, making no-bake peanut butter, chocolate, and oatmeal cookies. And so, since the beginning of the year, we've contracted with, we're collaborating, we're not paying any money out. We're working with Voices Against Violence, we're working with Martha's Kitchen, and we're working with St. Albans Rec Department. And we took a hike up to Mount Philo before winter, and this was us. There you go.
Corey would be proud.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, Pete.
Matt, I've known you for a long time, followed you through your career, must be 6-7 years now. But I think this is a good fit for you, and I think you're doing a wonderful job. It sounds like a great program. My issue is, I think it's very effective, but I don't think it's very efficient. And is there any way with such a great program and such a need for it, that we can move forward rather than wait for the lease? It seems too bad to have a program that so many people need and that we can offer, but a lease is holding us back. It just seems, and I understand the 2 years idea, it just seems like, how many kids are we losing in the meantime?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think to start a program like this and to start small and intentional is important. I do worry about, daily, do I worry about, about students that need this, and we just don't have the capacity at this time to provide that for a group of people. The idea to grow, I think, it's always there, but there's those logistical things that you spoke to that are going to just make us be more intentional and thoughtful moving forward.
And I understand
build us a building, or that's fine.
My construction effort.
Yeah.
If you did, you wouldn't ask that. But in the meantime, as we're moving forward, there's kids that we're losing. And that's why I think we need to put this, if it's so good and it appears to be, we need to fast track this. For I understand we grow slowly, but you've grown slowly and you have a great product, it sounds like. So let's jump on and utilize it.
Yeah, sign me up. Yeah, for sure. Even though, Lex, I'm going to get yelled at. I'd really like to be. I think would help round our group out with a special educator in house. And I think to be able to grow like that, and if we were going to grow, we would need more staffing as well as space.
Right. It's a bigger conversation than.
It's a huge conversation, yeah.
This took us almost 2 years to even create a proposal, to even think about doing something like this. It takes a lot of time to try to build a system and to be thoughtful about it. Absolutely love the support and love the continued support, and I think that's something we're constantly talking about and reassessing how we can make this look different and continue to make a bigger impact as we move.
Alexis and I have quite a few what if conversations.
Okay.
So your thinking's not off at all. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, aside from the hybrid students that spend time on campus, is there opportunities for the students to engage with their peers at BFA? Or do they not want to? Or I'm just wondering about when they go off into the real world, they're going to have to see other people other than just 15 people in a room.
Right. Socially, kids are managing what they can at this time. During the school day, I think I can speak for all of them that they're in a pretty good space right now, and they do have the opportunity to be social outside of school. And I do hear about things going on in the community outside with peers that they had both at BFA and not that don't go to BFA. That's a really thoughtful question. I appreciate that.
And that's also why Matt was a very strong advocate and did some work around the community connections and the career connections piece, so they're getting the interaction at businesses,
that's so great.
at workplaces, out in the community, which
I've
is essential for.
Yeah, I've helped to place 2 students working that wanted jobs, and we did it.
Okay. Charlie, did you have a question?
It was answered.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks.
Thanks, Alexa, for your support.
Thank you.
Matt, sorry I stepped out.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is item 7, old business. First thing is budget forum. So this is the budget forum, right?
Right. I forgot to ask Aaron and John to key up the YouTube video that we put out the first of the series.
So there's
you guys can access.
8, I think it's about 8 minutes,
Yeah.
right, the video. We're going to show this video, and this is an opportunity for anyone in this room and also on remote to ask any question about the budget that we're presenting. It's a little unusual to have question answer thing in the middle of a meeting, but it's related to the budget. And if somebody has a question, once they look at this, if they watch the meeting remotely after the fact, they can contact Superintendent Bill Kimball for their question via email or phone call, and he will respond to them about those specifics. Anything you need to say, Bill?
No, I just apologize because I forgot to ask Aaron and John, so they're quickly maneuvering for me. We're not getting them ready and have it queued up, so.
If you could keep apologizing for about 45 more seconds. we'll be good.
Yeah, no, it was not John or Aaron at all. That was my part. And I realized that as I looked at the next item, I was like, oh, boy, I forgot to get that ready. So it takes a minute to queue up a YouTube video. So he's trying to load it right now. Between internet speeds and other pieces. Okay.
I'm just waiting for the ad to go by before I.
Yeah.
Welcome to the video presentation of the proposed 2023-24 Maple Run Unified School District budget. I'm Nina Hunsaker, Vice Chair of the MRUSD Board. I work with Nilda Ganell-French, who is the Chair of the MRUSD Board. Maple Run is the school district for 5 schools and the Collin Purley's campus. We serve over 2,700 students across our schools. In a few minutes, you'll hear from our Superintendent Bill Kimball and our Business Manager Martha Gagne. They'll walk you through the really important details of this proposed budget. Before explaining the budget details, I thought it would be essential to explain the budget development process, the goals, and the board's role. As we develop a budget, our primary goal is to focus on MRUSD mission and students' needs within the community's cost. The Maple Run Unified School District is where inquiring minds, compassionate hearts, creative expression, healthy lives, and service to the community develop so all can learn, achieve, and succeed. In addition, our board has developed a moral imperative for why we do the work. The Maple Run School Board believes it is our moral imperative to ensure that all students feel a sense of belonging and a safety in our educational community so they learn and grow throughout their pre-K through 12 career and beyond. In November, we asked the school administration to create a budget that would keep in place our current programs and ensure supports for our students at risk. We are confident that our adopted budget does this. With that, I'd like to introduce Superintendent Bill Kimball to provide more detail on how Maple Run is both implementing our vision and supporting all students.
Hello, my name is Bill Kimball, and I am the Superintendent of Maple Run Unified School District. This year, the schools and the district have been able to run schools more accustomed to what we expected before the pandemic. The greater community has returned to the buildings, and our regular events with full attendance have happened without masks and COVID restrictions. This fall, we administered our semi-annual student climate survey and found that approximately 80% of our students feel safe, welcomed, and belong. This has increased approximately 20% from last year. While many of our students have a positive outlook on the school environment, there are those who still struggle a great deal. In particular, we have found students need increasingly more support, while our outside partners cannot provide it. With the worker shortage affecting all aspects of our economy, our social service partners have had limited capacity to serve their clients. For schools, this means we must serve them. Education is the only social service that cannot deny services. Therefore, we've had to increase our supports to students and families. The Maple Run Board has supported the district by doing this by using both federal grant funds and local dollars. The fiscal year 2023-2024 budget funds all of our locally funded programs and offerings at all 5 of our schools. In addition, stabilizes approximately $1 million of student support services that were funded through federal grants that will sunset either in 2023-24 or 2024-25 school years. 10.5 full-time positions were moved into the local budget. They include math, literacy, social emotional interventionalists, teachers, social workers, school safety workers, and behavior support positions. I now want to introduce Martha Gagne, Maple Run's business manager, to present an overview of this year's budget and how it affects the tax rates in each of our communities.
Hi, I'm Martha Gagne, the business manager for the Maple Run Unified School District. In order to make education happen in Maple Run, there is an operations team which supports our amazing teachers and support staff. These individuals keep our buildings clean and in good repair, ensure our students have transportation to and from school, offer after-school, co-curricular, and extracurricular opportunities, manage our IT systems, provide student support, financial and human resource services, and work with our outside partners to provide over 58,000 meals a month to students. All of this is to support a $64+ million a year enterprise. We work hard to keep expenses down while delivering the services the district expects and needs. The proposed budget for the fiscal year 2023-2024 is $69,422,742. This represents a 7.14% increase over the current year expenditure budget. This increase is primarily driven by salary and benefit increases, along with the addition of the positions described earlier by Superintendent Bill Kimball, and increased costs for our utilities and supplies. Looking at the budget overall, 77% of our budget is allocated to staffing the schools to support our children. Your tax rate is not based solely on the increase in the expenditure budget, but on a host of other state and local funding factors. This year, nearly $64 million in surplus in the state's education fund may be applied. After taking all of those factors into account, Maple Run's education tax rate is estimated to go down more than 2.5 cents. Since we consolidated into a single district in 2017, our education tax rates have been fairly flat. The final step in determining the local tax rate, as seen on your tax bill, is to apply the CLA. CLA stands for Common Level of Appraisal. It is a factor the state applies to the appraised property values in each town so that they more accurately reflect market values. The estimated CLA adjusted tax rate will be up approximately 13 cents in Fairfield, almost 2 cents in St. Albans Town, and 27 cents in St. Albans City. For example, using the CLA adjusted tax rates, it is estimated a $200,000 home site in St. Albans City will see a $545 increase in their property taxes. The same home site value in St. Albans Town will see a $39 increase, and in Fairfield a $266 increase. All of these estimates do not take into consideration income sensitivity. We encourage everyone to apply who is eligible for the income sensitivity adjustment.
We feel this year's budget is a very reasonable budget. The only factor for the board to control is the local budget expenditure and the effect on the tax rate. If we look at the tax rate since the merger without the common level of appraisal, the Maple Run tax rate is 10 cents lower since the start of our district. What we cannot control is increasing value in property in the St. Albans and Fairfield area. Our area is growing rapidly, both in population and property value. The entire tax increase for this year is due to the common level of appraisal, which is a measure of the true property's value, which has increased a great deal, especially in the city. If you have any questions about the budget, we invite you to either contact me or attend a board meeting or our budget forums on February 15th and March 1st at 6 p.m. During these board forums, we will discuss the budget and answer any questions. This has been the first of 6 short films about the Maple Run Unified School District 2023-2024 district budget. In the next 4 videos, we hope to highlight interesting programs the budget supports. Please get out and vote.
Yes, thank you. Anybody in the room have any questions?
So those are available on the website for people to look at?
Those are posted on the website, and they're gonna be, what? Social media, they've been pushed out.
Do you have Bill's email and those dates on social media sites and on the website? Saying it is one thing, just having it there, you know what I mean, for people to be able to see it might be helpful.
No.
Because they may not know how to contact him, you know what I mean? Just like if it's just ready, available, it might be more likely.
I can have that.
One of the dates was tonight, so it's happened.
Well, whatever, I mean,
Yeah.
it's still time.
Yeah, Charlie?
Just if those YouTube videos are publicly available, are they?
Yeah.
Then using the description in the video to provide the links would probably be a good idea, if that's not already been done.
Thanks.
No, I think it's great.
Yes?
Is there a transcript or a written summary that goes with the video that could be linked?
So there's all the annual reports,
Yeah.
and those are coming out soon, that would have all that same information. Not a transcript per se, but have that information. We have 2 different versions of that, and it will be in the St. Albans Messenger, the 2 Fridays before and the Friday before town meeting, with the same information. So we're doing it.
People that like to read.
We'll have the annual report that we always have to put up. I think, when's that coming? Aaron, what's our due date for the annual report?
That's already posted.
That's already posted, that'd be great. And then we'll have the 2 times that we take out, I think it's either 2 or 3 pages in the messenger.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Next item on the agenda is implicit bias and anti-racism training. So again, we're working with that creative discourse group to determine best approach. I wanted to know if you want to say anything more about that.
Well, we're meeting tomorrow night, second meeting of the design group in this room at 5:30. The group's come together with some possible ideas to have a summit in April to invite all members of the community to come and give us, not only we have listening sessions, areas to work on, but also possible action steps to help move those areas forward.
And that'll happen in April, you said?
Hopefully April or May. A date has not been set yet right now, but we're looking at that time period, and that group's going to be talking about dates tomorrow night here. And we're looking at weekends, a Saturday, because it'll be an all-day come together. So we're working on that. And then I sent an article to you, an email about students in poverty.
Yeah. So a question for this group is, do we want to continue keeping this item on every agenda? Or do we want periodic reports? Or do we want something other than that? Just a question, looking for input. Yes?
I don't mind having it on the agenda just as a quick, this is what's going on, but, unless we need a specific report.
Okay. Anyone else? Anybody disagree with that, or? Okay, so we'll keep that on the agenda, so we'll get regular updates on that. Next item on the agenda is setting goals. So Grant gave us an update at the last meeting. Does the board have any reflections or anything they'd like to talk about related to that goals discussion, or that goals presentation, excuse me? So we have a subcommittee that had been formed to work on that. So the question now is, do we want to continue having that subcommittee in place? Or, yes?
I would just add that there are 2 more goals upcoming that are associated with the work of the creative discourse group.
Okay.
And so that work's not complete. If we want to act on the 3 that have been recommended, I think there's the opportunity there.
Yeah.
there's really kind of a different flavor for the two that we did versus the two that are still out there.
Okay.
They could be separated.
I mean, from your perspective, I know you're moving off the board, but do you see a need to keep the subcommittee going? We have to replace you, but,
well, I mean, depending on what the obligations to that committee, we have non-board members on that could continue. And I think I would. But I think my recommendation would be to when the complete goals are consolidated, to have someone from that committee there to answer questions about them. If they were
Right.
if there's any context to the background information.
thank you. And did I hear you say you would continue on this board? Okay, you said that in front of a lot of witnesses.
On a committee.
Yeah, a committee, excuse me, committee. All right. Anyone else have anything to say about that? Any comments? Okay, moving on, negotiations update. Hey, Jack, got a negotiations update for us?
Sure. We've had three very good meetings, and we're working hard. And the next meeting is February 22nd. And I'm not sure when our information meeting is for the budget in town meeting day. When's our informational night?
March 1st. March 1st here in this room at 6 p.m.
Oh, okay. So it won't conflict with the 22nd. So that's our next negotiating meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. And the professional staff has met several times. We've passed a few proposals back and forth, and both groups are studying proposals and coming up with next steps. We have a meeting set up for in a couple of weeks, I believe.
23rd.
23rd, thank you, in a week. In 8 days. Sorry. And that's the negotiations update. Any questions? Okay, you have the social emotional learning data from the fall of 22 that had come up with a request from the board to get that data. So we have that in your packet. Do we have any questions related to any of that data? Because we're not going to go review it line per line because you have it. Questions? All right, hearing none, I'm going to move on. Next item is new business. We have student flagpole discussion about installing a pole for student-sponsored flags only. This had come up as an agenda request from Susan, so I'm going to let you sort of start the discussion,
So
Susan, if you would.
I know that at the beginning of this school year, there was quite a bit of discussion from community members about the flag and the flagpole. And with concern from some community members that the flag was a political statement, and that the educational system shouldn't necessarily be making these political statements. So I believe I had read that the same question came up at least one other local school district, and their solution was to put up a flagpole for the Social Justice Club, or for, the student-led flags. And I thought that might be one way to solve this problem that, or concern that community members might have in terms of it being, we should be supporting, an educational system shouldn't be supporting political ideas. That's why I brought it up.
Discussion? Yes, Peter.
I support that 100%, Susan. I think that, also as I think about it, when you drive around, the grade schools all have the flag that basically the BFA students decide whether they're interested in. And I think at some point we have to look at 7th and 8th graders and see if they have an opinion, and it should be taken in as well. So I would agree, totally take the politics out of it and put a flagpole to BFA.
Thank you. Corinne?
So, I'll start off by saying I don't know one way or the other whether or not Black Lives Matter truly is a political group, but we should probably be careful to consider whether or not something that has been politicized in the media truly is political. I think in a lot of cases you have polarizing topics that are picked up, by the left or the right, and appear to be political, when in fact they only get that way because of the following and the position. Black Lives Matter may be one of those things. I don't know. So just before we kind of blow past that.
Yeah, good point.
And I don't know either.
Yeah.
Katie?
I guess, just like I was saying earlier, my only thing is, and I'm fine with having a flagpole, I'm fine with, but I would really like to see, I understand, I think you, Leah, especially because you come to every meeting, I think you're such an advocate for your school. And I think the Social Justice Club, I think, couldn't have a more fearless leader. With that being said, I would like to be able to see people come to you and maybe have you help fight for them. I know you kind of said, well, we told them to go, but I think you have such a strong presence that maybe knowing that you'd say, okay, well, I can help you bring it to the board. I think that would make me feel like, okay, they have somebody in their corner as well, instead of just saying, look, I figured it out. Having you guys there as a club, I think would really help those people come and say, I don't have to go up there and do it by myself. You know what I mean? So it's more of an homage to you to say, I think that you guys would be great in supporting the students.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Thanks, Katie.
Yep.
Charles, do you want to be called Charles or Charlie?
I usually go by Charlie, but either or.
Okay,
if
because
you
I've been
have to
using
make a
both.
choice, go ahead with Charlie.
I've been being very familiar, and I don't really know which one.
Neither offends me.
Okay. You have a question?
Yeah, I just have a clarifying question to kind of catch me up on the history. Is the objection from those who have an objection the existence of the flag on the school pole, or just the existence of the flag on the school grounds in general? Because I'm not entirely sure if just putting up a second flag is gonna or like putting up the second pole would necessarily quell
So
those.
my impression, based on the testimony that I heard, and you guys all heard the same stuff, so you feel free to chip in, is that some people were concerned that the school was supporting this political statement, that it was going up on the school flagpole. That's my impression of what happened. Now, having it on I think that for me, it seems like it would be an easy separation just to put up a second flagpole.
So it's not under the American flag in the Vermont, so it would be a separate, it'd be a separate pole to that.
That was my impression. I don't know if anyone else.
I'm just trying to process things behind my eyes
Sure.
here.
Yeah.
Would they be put up at all schools? Since would only one addition be added to the high school? Or, because right now we have the Black Lives Matter flag on at the 3-4 schools.
Yeah. I hadn't thought that far ahead. I just kind of, it kept coming up in the meeting, so I really felt like we ought to address it.
What do you feel, Leah, about putting them at other schools? Or Sarah?
I definitely do agree that we kind of missed some of the other voices from the elementary students, but from what I heard actually is when they had their own ceremonies, and I was really privileged to be able to be at the one for BFA, and I heard that they went really well for the other schools as well. I think that was just an important time and an important conversation, I think, to have to facilitate, but I think it should be at all schools, because another thing is it's a a message, I guess, and in support for those sort of students. So I guess what I think is that if it comes to the board and there's a good reason, I think everything that we raise would be in for good reason. So I think even irregardless of all those like students being maybe included, that they would then be included because we would have ceremonies to be raised. So again, for instance, say we raise the pride flag, then we can start those conversations at each of the schools or any other flags for that matter. Yeah, and I'm looking at I'm getting this from the policy that it originates from students. So I guess my setback is, are students complaining about it or?
Students, I haven't heard students complain about it. And I'm talking about just the feedback that we got in school board meetings.
From parents, from other.
Community, yeah. They weren't students, they were like community members, parents. And I'm gonna say, it didn't feel like it was an overwhelming amount of people coming forward, so.
I think it would be good to add a second flagpole to have like an outlet and maybe like to put it out there like, hey, we can raise more flags and like start a more conversation, but I wouldn't want it to be having a separate flagpole to kind of take away from it being of course it's not as important as above those flags, but I guess that would be my concern, to take away from the message that we were trying to get.
It's good. Thank you. Anyone else? Charlie?
I just have yet another, I'll go ahead and let Jack.
One sec, Jack.
Oh, okay. I just have another couple quick questions. So like we had, you had talked earlier about the possibility of the pride flag going up. Does that, if that goes up, does that replace the Black Lives Matter flag, or does it go under it, or are they both on the pole?
I would say it would be an addition. The one that we have for the policies, the Black Lives Matter flag is up for a year. I haven't really had that conversation actually, so I wouldn't know. Personally, I wouldn't want it to be replaced, but.
Can I just, I believe the policy, I don't have it in front of me, and it looks like you do, Peter, so you can look at it.
Yeah, it says unless the board elects a different time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So okay. And I have another question, but I don't know how to phrase it yet, so I'll shush.
Okay, Jack, what you got?
So, I can see having an alternative pole for other flags, but I wouldn't frame it as political. Like the lives of Black people is not a political thing to me. Gay pride is not political. Political would be Republican or Democrat or independent or, some issue that might be more portrayed by a political group. But Black lives should be everybody's desire to promote that Black lives matter. That shouldn't be political. But I can understand where we wouldn't want something to take away from the American flag. And it might be a good idea to have an alternative pole for other things, like gay pride or Black Lives Matter or any other important issue for the kids. And so that was my only comment. It's not a political thing. It's just maybe to take away from having a pole that's just devoted to the American and state flags.
Thanks, Jack.
That's my thoughts.
Yep.
So
Susan.
I just wanted to clarify that I am not suggesting that I believe that the Black Lives Matter flag is a political flag. Okay, that's not necessarily my feeling. The reason I brought this up is because it seemed like we had quite a bit of discussion about it, several board meetings in a row, and this seemed like maybe a solution to it.
I agree.
That's why I brought it up. That's why I brought it up, not because I didn't think that Black Lives Don't Matter and that this was a political flag. I brought it up in response to feedback that we got from some community members.
Thanks, Susan. Thanks. Grant?
Regardless of whether or not we have one flag or two, the board could consider adding a criteria that would state flags must be deemed to be apolitical. And that would at least force some discussion and determination by the board on that line, stated on the record.
Right.
Of what we consider to be political and not political in nature.
But it still becomes its opinion, doesn't it?
Not necessarily.
Unless you come up
there's,
with...
there's pretty clear cut, requirements to be, say, registered as a political party. As long as you're not flying the flag of a political party, maybe it's not political. Right there, you could make those kinds of cases, you can make those kinds of arguments during that discussion of any given proposal.
Good point. Charlie?
Just kind of like a general thing that's kind of kicking around in my head is we're just a very, very white room. And in the context of the Black Lives Matter flag, it's a little kind of dissonant in my head to have a bunch of white folks saying we're going to put a separate flagpole for other flags too, but right now the one that people are discussing is Black Lives Matter, and I'm just sort of generally spitballing and wondering if there's any way of getting a wider, more diverse opinion on that. It would require someone from the community, speaking up. But I, just kind of, in my gut would be wondering if you're a black student and Black Lives Matter poll is being put on a separate poll, what does that make you feel?
Right.
But I think with it being student run, it would be any flag can go up there. So it's not just the Black Lives Matter flag, it's anything that the students deem. So it's not the school saying, this is what we feel, it's that's where the students are. Maybe that makes them feel special, hey, these students thought about us, and this is what's up there. Whether it be the Abnaki flag, the Black Lives Matter, the Gay Pride flag, I think it kind of gives almost a special, this isn't just the adults saying, I pay taxes, this is what's going on. This is student run.
I don't necessarily, I don't necessarily disagree with you. It's just one of those things where I'm kind of questioning, questioning motivations and trying to check a little bit before jumping forward and being and basically I'm trying to consider other perspectives in that.
So early on, we did have input from both community members and board members related to that were more connected to the scene.
I certainly appreciate what you're saying, though.
Yeah, for sure. Sarah?
I'm a student rep, so I want to just say maybe something that a student would want to get out there. I just think that maybe the discussion of whether something is political or not should be opened up to students. I think a lot of students did think that when the Black Lives Matter flag was raised, I think a lot of them did see it as a political thing rather than, a message. And I think that I didn't hear a lot of discussion. Leah got to, be there for the raising, and I didn't even know it was happening. I just heard about it a day after, and I was kind of oh, that's awesome. But I think to hear what the students think is what's, it is for them. So
I just want to make sure that, did you have your hand up too, Leah?
Yeah, I was just going to make sure I know. On comments on what we did send out to students, to kind of remind people, we had 437 responses that were only opened to NCTC students, BFA students, and staff members. So it is purely BFA. And this was also sent to prospective students. I think we have a different one, but anyways, it was for like the staff members and students only, so I do reiterate that. If it's open and it's there for students, I think it's the message behind it, and why we're doing it. And I think if that's gonna facilitate more flags and more things, then I think it's great.
Thank you. Bill?
I think Charlie's really wise, actually, in what he just said.
Mhm.
And I think it's been a great discussion tonight, but I think pausing, trying to, I know in my listening sessions, I heard a variety of opinions from students, because I was able to be in all the student listening sessions. And I think trying to get some of that information, and maybe it's going back to those groups again and saying, hey, we got a question for you, what do you think? And we were getting, we had diversity in the groups. I wish we had more diversity in the groups from across our student body, but I do know some of the comments are in my head about what I heard in those sessions, and I think it would be important to ask the question you just asked, Charlie, about what does that mean to you students?
Thank you. So.
Can I just say one last thing?
Sure.
Just in support of what Bill is saying, and I appreciate, Peter, what you were trying to solicit information and student conversation before when you had asked Leah to go back and talk to people. I want to make sure that it's not our agenda, and I want to make sure that it's not our time frame, and that this is an educational opportunity for students, and so they have to kind of feel like they really need to determine that agenda and the time frame. And we may be used to doing things a little bit faster, but I think that they're learning as they're doing, and by utilizing the services of Up for Learning, they're going to be able to understand the process and then learn as they're doing it and arrive at the decisions that are meaningful and understandable, digestible for them. And I think we just need to let them kind of do their thing.
Thank you. So, as far as next steps go, student, next step. Tag, you're it. No, I'm just saying, we have to, in looking at this,
For me?
I think, do you want to review the policy and come up with some suggestions? Add another flagpole to it if that's the position you want to go to? You guys could, I don't know.
So I think we should just, let's pause on this right now.
Like pause completely?
Pause right now. Let's make sure we have a check-in, April or May. Mr. Blanchard and myself meet with the Student Voices Committee, which is the student reps. They're doing some good work with, as they referenced earlier, with Up for Learning. I don't want to push an agenda on them right now as they're learning about how they're trying to develop more voice of all the collective student body from across Maple Run. So let's not push an agenda on them as they get, as kind of Joanna said, about they're kind of getting their feet under them, they're working on that, and not make something that's gonna.
But I would love to, I could also talk to a social justice club. If you want me to.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I think we can get student voice, I just don't think expect it to be the next 2 meetings. And let's try to revisit this by May. Okay, is that agreeable to everyone? Okay.
Works. All right, 2 business B, informational meeting. You've heard it a couple times tonight. It's March 1st at 6 p.m. here in the central office. We expect public to come and ask us questions about the budget. We'll see how we do. We don't typically have a whole lot of people, and now that we, tape these meetings, wherever the right word is, they can watch all this at home, so if they have questions, they can communicate with us. But we'd like board members to come, certainly March 1st at 6 p.m. And I think that's our meeting night, too.
That is our meeting night. It's a little different this year because of the way the calendar sets up. The first Wednesday of the month is March 1st, and town meeting is the 7th.
So are we going to start with the informational meeting and then move into the school board meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wonder if we should book that meeting for like 6:30, the school board meeting, or somehow say immediately following.
I think we just say both and immediately following. We can figure that out.
All right. And then item C is school calendar for 23-24. It's attachment 8C.
Yep.
This is in your packet for your information.
So this is part of kind of like coming back from COVID time. I had Aaron research, and we couldn't find a time, all the way back to the beginning of Maple Run, that a calendar was brought to the board. I'm not looking for approval, it hasn't been done, because this is something that we negotiate between 16 school districts in Champlain Valley. So if you wanted to change it, you couldn't, because what if you did change it, we wouldn't have staff here some days, because other schools would be in session, and then some days, other schools would be out of session, we'd be in session, so it'd be a mess.
I was thinking at least you could have given everyone my birthday off.
That would be 27th of March for someone in this room.
I have a really weird question.
Yeah.
I get this all the time. Do we build in any snow days? I know it seems like such a
Yeah,
ridiculous.
so you'll see it
like,
at
I see that's possible.
You see down from the 14th of June to the 21st,
Right.
we're leaving Juneteenth
Yeah.
as a holiday. That's why you see it as blue, so we have 5 snow days built into this calendar. It's not built into the 177 days.
That's what I was asking.
The 177th day for students is the 13th. And one of the big objectives of all the superintendents, and we're not doing it this year, and we're relearning a lesson, it seems like every 7 to 10 years we learn, is if we have school scheduled without snow days, it goes past the second week in June. June becomes really tough for everyone, staff, students, parents. So we worked backwards this year. It's one of the things when we sit with the leadership team, I say, and we joke about it, and it's really my topic I loathe, but I always say, oh, good, we get to go do school calendar, because no one has total control of it because of the alignment that has to happen. So, I wanted to hand this to you because we already have parents asking for it, I believe. Have you gotten any calls asking for next year's calendar? Yeah. So people like to know by now what next year's calendar is we're going to be putting up on the website. But I wanted to at least inform all of you as board members that this was happening, and you know, take any comments you have. But really, it's pretty locked at this point.
Thank you.
So it will be going up tomorrow or Friday because of the number of people. How it increases exponentially from now to like May 1st. Yeah, that's why.
Okay, next item is our new item that we added. It's a staff leave request. Is
Yes.
this something that can be handled in public session?
I think so.
Okay.
Elaine Archibald, our Director of Guidance, has an opportunity to, it's not an annual, it's a rare opportunity, and our contracts allow it, that to be on a trip with her husband to Europe. And she supports that business. And so I can give up to 5 days, it's 9 days, and she's part of the teacher's agreement. And so a leave request had to come to the board for that 9 days. I totally support it. Elaine she's actually working to have an intern work with her in the guidance department. She's done a really nice job in the guidance department of pulling the staff together there. And that's probably one of the calmest times of the year for the guidance department, is the October time. So I fully recommend that the board approve this leave request.
Okay, so you got the explanation. Can I have a motion to approve the staff leave request of Elaine Archambault?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a
I'll
second?
second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Just for the minutes, it's supported by administration. Need to take a roll call vote. Grant?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Thank you. Joanna?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Nilda, yes. Charles?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. All right. Next item is item 9, warrants. So, Mr. Kimmel is going to pass out around the warrants. These are basically the expenses that we've had since the last set of warrants went through, and we as a board sign off on them. They come in your packet, so you can look through what you get in your packet, and if something really strikes you as crazy, like they spent $1 million on crayons or something, and you have questions that you need to ask, you that's really crazy, but you would call Martha. And it's a great opportunity to ask those questions in advance of the meeting, but if you don't ask them in advance of the meeting and it comes up while we're at the meeting, you can certainly ask, because Martha's usually pretty prepared to answer those. And once you look at a few, after a couple months, you sort of become familiar, so you notice if something is out of whack compared to how it's looked in the past. So that's a very quick and dirty explanation of what warrants are. They're very important, and I don't mean to minimize them or joke about them too much, but.
And you can come early.
I beg your pardon?
You can come early to a meeting and look through them.
Oh, yes,
If you
for
wanted
sure.
to look at them more.
Yeah, oh yeah, in real form, right?
Me too.
Okay, so because we're doing this with somebody on remote, I'm gonna say that I'd like a motion to approve the warrants, acknowledging that passage of the motion will act as authorization and signature of any individual board member participating remotely. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Grant, I think, got to me first. Any further discussion? Okay, Grant.
Yes.
Jack.
Yes.
Joanna.
Yes.
Katie.
Yes.
Peter.
Yes.
Susan.
Yes.
Nilda, yes. Charles.
Yes.
Suzanne.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
Great, well, I want to start with a celebration. And I'm going to ask my colleague John Muldoon to bring up a video that was shot by Stephanie Ripley. I want to thank her for giving me this great idea. We talked a few meetings ago about celebrations, and I'm sure some of you have heard of our working to be more inclusive in our celebrations. And this is an example, before I'll let you know when you can push play, John, of a pre-K classroom and celebrating Valentine's Day. And the teacher went around to all the kids, and every kid had to say they're really working on kindness and appreciation of others in the spirit of Valentine's Day. And all the kids wrote, which it means they talked to an adult in pre-K, about what they like about their peer. And then you'll see what this teacher did in her circle time and how the kids reacted. And she started on Monday, and I think it's going throughout the week. I forgot to ask Stephanie when she's going to end, because I think she's doing a couple of kids every day. But how the kids are celebrating Valentine's Day. And I thought it was just, Stephanie shared this with the central office team here Monday, and I said, I want to show that Wednesday at the board meeting. I think it's just a great celebration of the really terrific work all our teachers are doing. And this is just one of the 390 teachers we have of all the great work everyone's doing to include all kids. So, John, if you could show it. And you'll see some blurred out video trying to faces. Oh, we're missing volume.
Alright, so are you ready? Ray said, okay, so right here. Ray says, I love that Stella makes me laugh. Stella said about herself, I love that I always will make plans with friends. Harmony says, I love Stella because outside she makes me laugh. Look at Stella and think about her because we're celebrating her right now. Miss Beth says, Stella, I like how kind and helpful you are. Ariella says, I love playing games with Stella. Brady says, I like seeing Stella. She is so beautiful. Miss Leah says, Stella, you are such a problem solver. We are so lucky to have such a kind friend in our class. Samuel says, I love to play with Stella in the vet office. She always shares with me. Miss Vicky says, Stella, I love you because you are a team player and you are kind. Liam says, I love Stella because she will always play with me. Miss Minot says, Stella, you are friends and teachers. This is why I love you. Max says, Stella, I like to play with you in the block area. You are fun. Mariana says, I have fun with Stella and I love her and I love to play outside with you. And Smith says, Stella, I love you. I love playing with you. Thank you for helping me clean up. Who said that? Smile. Stella, we love you. Here comes Flo. All right.
So if that doesn't touch your heart a little bit, I know that our teachers are really hard. You couldn't look at that, you couldn't see on that sheet, but they were all hearts. And the kids, sat down and put them together, and a great celebration of kindness and love, and that is not what Valentine's Day is about. And I know that happened because I heard many stories from other teachers who were doing something similar. And as I got older in grade levels, like, why was Valentine sainted? What was that all about? So, I think just a great way of doing inclusive celebrations with all kids. So, I wanted to show that.
Thank you.
The other two things I'd mentioned, I sent an email to you yesterday or Monday that sent you two really pieces. I sent you something about schools and poverty and not using poverty as an excuse. And how that creeps into school systems. So that was an article that I saw from ASCD, which is the Association of Schools and Curriculum Development. It's already printed out so long. If you printed it out, is because I couldn't find a way to get the font smaller and to a readable. So while it looks like it's 22 pages, it's really like 3 written pages. And I just frankly didn't take the time to copy and paste and do all that piece into a Word document. The second thing I sent you, which I think is really important, and if you had a spare 25 minutes or even up to an hour, Lynn Coda from Franklin Northeast gave a tremendous presentation to the House Education Committee last week on the effects of mental health in schools, and that our social services partners are not able to stay afloat. I mentioned it in my budget video. And what was amazing is that there were 4 superintendents who were lined up to testify to the House Education about because of what's happening with the lack of ability of our social service partners to be able to respond, the schools are having to take on all that work. And so because of that, we're developing our own mental health systems. And the sad part of that is that we're taking away employees from our social services partners because we have better pay and benefits, and at the same time we're reducing the federal funding that those social services partners can access that we cannot, Medicaid funding. So not only are we taking it away, but we're also increasing the cost to the locals. And so it was a plea to the House Ed not to ask us to do it, but to rebuild the social services partnerships out there in society. I probably have this discussion daily in our school system and Alexis is doing a tremendous job for the school district. But without those outside partners, we are putting a lot on schools, and the mission of school has changed because of the lack of what those partners can do. And we are becoming the mental health providers, where we don't have an expertise in that. We have people who have expertise in our system, but we're not a system that was built to be a mental health provider. And because we are the only social service that can't say no to a student, we're having to do it. So I think Lynn did an awesome job. I don't know if you saw it, Joanne, because you work in her district, but she did a great job of what used to be and what there is now, and she did it in 2 slides, and it's a very powerful graphic. Yeah. So, it starts at about 25 minutes into that video. She's right away. If you watch that, every superintendent afterwards said, I can give you the same stories that Lynn gives, and I can give the same stories here from Maple Run. So,
thank you.
Really important information for you to have as board members. And the last thing I need to say is on the 20th, at 8 o'clock in the morning at NCTC, we're hosting all the Franklin County legislators for a breakfast on education. Most of them said they're coming. You're more than welcome to be part of it. It's 8 to 9:30. It'll be held in Building Trades. Please feel come
On the,
on Monday the 20th from 8 to 9:30.
Is this what they used to call legislative?
Breakfasts,
Yeah.
right, they still have those on Saturdays, but we couldn't get an education one on this year's agenda, so we added we invited, and most of them said they're coming, so.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Any questions for superintendent? Okay, next item on the agenda is board announcements. So this is an opportunity for the board to bring up any things that might be of interest to the board. Often, example would be sometimes Susan would bring up the latest ski team scores or that sort of thing because it's an area that she keeps track of.
well, Michaela Schifrin is, I think she's just maybe one shy of beating the all-time world record, most World Cup wins.
Cool. Anyone have any announcements, Peter?
Just that, I don't know if anybody knows or cares, but my son has a big preschool that flooded out over that freezing weather, and literally he has 60 to 70 students and 10,000 square feet that we had to clean all that stuff out, and we did. And luckily, he found a place to move it, otherwise it would have been 60 to 70 families that didn't have any childcare, and Bill reached out to him. And I just think that was very nice. It's nice when you're under that sort of stress to know that people care. And I want to thank you for doing that.
We have a lot of community members, a lot of teachers who work, so that's where I work. We have a lot of teachers who have students that come that have reached out and been like, what can we do? It was just this outpouring from the community. It was awesome, but we're hoping to be back in 3 weeks, hopefully. Right now, the Church of the Rock is letting us use their space, so yeah. So Bill, yeah, it was very nice of you.
Oh, well, thank you. I talked with Suzanne and Charlie about trying to put together a new board orientation, that we could probably do that after town meeting.
Yep, sounds good. All right, any other board announcements?
It's my daughter Sarah's birthday today, I need to call her and I'll send that.
I have a couple. First, I'd like to thank Grant for his time on the board. I think this is your last official meeting.
He's going.
One more, that's right.
You kicking me out?
No. Okay, I'll save my thank yous for later. And also, I just wanted to, again, welcome Suzanne and Charles, and announce that you all know this, but Suzanne, Charles, Jack, and Amanda Giroux are all running for the 4 seats that are available. So there's no contest. Everybody that's running is definitely going to get on the board. I always say this, unless someone mounts a write-in campaign and goes crazy. But that's what's going on, and I appreciate that you guys are interested in being on the board, and we look forward to it all. And it's really good to be here tonight. It's kind of nice to be here in person, so thank you for that. Anything else that needs to come before the board? We are adjourned.